Welcome to the 2013 Safety Conference webinar for October. My name is Katie Parrish, Editorial Director of Maximum Capacity Media, and your host for today's conference. My contact information is located at the bottom of this page and will again be available at the end of the presentation in case you have some follow-up comments, ideas, suggestions, or questions after today's event. Maximum Capacity Media would like to extend a special thank you to the sponsor for today's presentation, Genie. Genie is one of the largest manufacturers of aerial lifting equipment in the world, with products that include a complete line of self-propelled aerial work platforms, portable aerial work platforms, material lifts, booms, scissors, and telehandlers. Genie's success has been based on developing innovative products while offering superior customer service and support over the course of 4 decades. Genie is part of Terex Aerial Work Platforms, a business segment of Terex Corporation. Learn more about Genie's products and services at www.genielift.com. When safety was first introduced in 2007, our mission was to bring lifting equipment users and operators presentations and information to raise safety, introduce best practices, and bring compliance awareness to the construction, rental, and industrial markets. Topics are selected to help provide clarification, unify industry efforts, and help save the lives of equipment operators and workers on the ground. Today's presenter is Scott Owyen, Training Manager of Global Marketing for Terex Aerial Work Platforms. Scott joined Genie in 1983 and has held key positions in manufacturing, training, product management, and outside sales. Today, Scott serves as the Global Training Manager and focuses primarily on aerial work platform and telehandler operator safety and product training. Scott was also instrumental in the development of the Genie Lift Pro online operator training program, which has trained more than 1,600 operators since it was launched in February of this year. If you have questions for Scott during the presentation, please type them into the question box on your screen, and we will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. Additionally, this presentation will be recorded and can be accessed this week on safetyconference.com and the Maximum Capacity Media YouTube channel, as well as liftinaccess.com. I'll show the addresses again for both at the end of this presentation. And now I'm going to pass the controls over to Scott, and he's going to go on with his presentation. Scott, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Owyen, and I am the Global Training Manager for Genie, which is the Aerial Work Platform division of Terex. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning and to speak with you about how employees can train operators in a manner they can understand and how the issues of language, comprehension, and literacy all play a major role. But before I get into the presentation, I would like to take a few minutes to talk about why training is so important. As a training manager at Genie, I receive phone calls every week from people asking me questions about the safe operation of aerial work platforms. More commonly than not, these people have not been trained, and what they want to do is typically very unsafe. So I take the time to explain to them the training requirements for aerial work platforms, and I often ask to speak with their supervisor so I can educate them as well. Unfortunately, for every person who calls me with questions, there are hundreds of other individuals who simply get into the platform of a boom or a scissor lift and try to figure out how it works just so you get the job done. So let's take a look at a few of them now. This is just one of the many reasons why OSHA's fall protection campaign is so important. Falls constitute 1/3 of the construction fatalities, and this individual is one slip away from adding to that statistic. I can't for the life of me understand what he's doing up there, but what I do understand is this person is clearly untrained. This photo really disturbs me. According to the IPATH accident database, of the 31 reported fatalities that occurred worldwide in 2012, 8 involved electrocution in a boom. The average untrained individual simply does not understand that the machine does not have to come in direct contact with a power line to be in extreme danger. I will talk about that a little later in the presentation, but the critical point that I'd like to make here is this information is not covered in familiarization or walk-around training. The critical information that saves lives is found only in the content of a high-quality, in-depth training program like the ones I'll talk about this morning. You've probably all seen this at some point or another. You can walk through manufacturing facilities, airports, construction sites, and see people standing on the platform guardrails. According to OSHA, falling from the platform guardrails at heights of less than 10 feet causes roughly 1/3 of all severe injuries and deaths involving scissor lifts. This is completely unnecessary and completely avoidable. Again, according to the IPAP accident database in 2012, falling from the platform nearly tied with electrocution is a leading cause of death involving booms. And these are the types of things that we really are trying to eliminate in the industry. This is a summary from the IPAP accident database in 2012. You'll notice that 20 of the fatalities occurred in the United States, but 11 of them occurred in other parts of the country that have a much smaller percentage of aerial work platforms per operator. So this is truly a global issue that we're talking about here. And please remember, this data is based on information that's collected in a number of different ways. It's directly reported to the IPAP accident reporting website. It's obtained by IPAP staff worldwide, and then they collect it through information collated from press releases and news reports. So this is not a definitive report of all fatal accidents in the world. These numbers are heartbreaking and absolutely unacceptable. When an operator is well-trained, well-qualified, and familiarized on the machine, when they performed a pre-operation inspection, function tests, and a workplace risk assessment, an aerial work platform can be one of the safest machines on the job site. However, if the operator is untrained and unqualified, it quickly becomes the most dangerous machine on the job site. That's why the American National Standards Institute addresses operator training in their A92 standards. ANSI has developed strictly defined training requirements for aerial work platforms. These requirements are outlined in their A92 Manual of Responsibilities that is sent with every machine shipped in the United States and Canada. This document is so important that it's considered a permanent part of the machine, and it must remain with the machine at all times. Section 7.6 outlines the responsibilities of the user as it pertains to training and retraining, and most commonly the user is the employer. Whenever a user directs or authorizes an individual to operate an aerial platform, the user shall ensure that the person has been trained before being assigned to operate the aerial platform, familiarized with the specific model of aerial platform to be operated, made aware of responsibilities of operators as outlined in Section 8 of this standard, and retrained if necessary based on the user's observation and evaluation of the operator. Now, although ANSI standards are voluntary, OSHA often adopts ANSI standards via incorporation by reference. When these standards are adopted or incorporated, they become part of the OSHA regulation, and therefore compliance is mandatory. Not following the ANSI standards could be considered a violation of OSHA's General Duty Clause, which requires employers to keep the workplace free from recognized hazards. On April 28, 2010, Assistant Secretary of Labor David Michaels issued a memorandum to reiterate OSHA's training standards policy. In practical terms, this means that the employer must instruct its employees using both a language and a vocabulary that the employees can understand. For example, if an employee does not speak or comprehend English, instruction must be provided in a language the employee can understand. If the employee's vocabulary is limited, the training must account for that limitation. And if the employees are not literate, telling them to read training materials simply does not satisfy the employer's training obligation. OSHA compliance officers are responsible for checking and verifying that employers have provided training to employees. In addition, they must check and verify that the training was provided in a format that the workers being trained could understand. If a reasonable person would conclude that the employer had not conveyed the training to its employees in a manner they were capable of understanding, then the violation may be cited as serious. So let's take a look at what training entails per ANSI A92. Only personnel who have been received general training instructions regarding inspection, application, and operation of aerial platforms, including recognition and avoidance of hazards associated with their operation, shall operate an aerial platform. Such items covered shall include, but not necessarily be limited to, the following issues and requirements. The purpose and use of all safety and operating manuals. They must understand that operating manuals are an integral part of the aerial platform and must be stored properly in the weather-resistant compartment when not in use, and remain with the machine at all times. They must perform a pre-start inspection. They must understand the responsibilities associated with problems or malfunctions affecting the operation of the aerial platform. It's critical to understand factors affecting stability, the purpose of placards and decals, how to perform a workplace inspection, safety rules and regulations, what constitutes authorization to operate, and operator warnings and instructions. If you look at all of this, this is all very critical information. And then finally, actual operation of the aerial platform. Under the direction of a qualified person, the trainee shall operate the aerial platform for a sufficient period of time to demonstrate proficiency in the actual operation of the machine. So these are the steps that must be taken for a person to become a qualified operator. That's a lot of information, and every bit of it is critical. In addition, when operators are directed to operate an aerial platform that wasn't covered in their initial training, they must be familiarized on that specific model prior to operating the aerial device regarding the following items: the location of the weather-resistant compartment for manual storage, and that the manuals are stored in that compartment, the purpose and function of all controls, the purpose and function of all safety devices and operating characteristics specific to that aerial device, and again, operating the aerial device for a sufficient period of time to demonstrate proficiency. I'd like you to look at this list for just a moment. This is what the vast majority of the individuals who are operating aerial platforms today think that training is. They completely don't understand the two slides before this. As a matter of fact, if you look at these 4 steps, you can even take number 3 out of the equation, because most people don't even understand that that's a requirement. So these 3 steps are what most people believe constitutes training. I say that because in every class I teach, I ask how many of you have been operating booms and scissors on a regular basis, and all the hands go up. Then I ask them how many have been trained in a classroom or gone through general training of some kind, and all their hands go down. And then they look around the room and they start laughing. But by the time I'm done with my class, they're no longer laughing because they know they are lucky to be alive. I hear things like, I didn't know that. I do that all the time. I see this all the time. When I ask people, have you been trained, they almost always say yes. But when I ask them what kind of training they got, they tell me that the truck driver showed them where the controls were and how to run the machine. When I ask them if they ever looked at the operator's manual, typically they've never even seen one. It really illustrates how we as an industry need to seriously elevate the awareness of training requirements to the end users, the individuals who actually operate the aerial platforms, and make sure that they know not only what their responsibilities are, but what their employer's responsibilities are as well. It seems fairly simple and straightforward, but there are some substantial challenges to the effective communication of the required information in a manner that students can understand. So let's take a look at 3 of them. Language barriers is a big one, literacy issues, and comprehension issues. So let's take a look at all 3 of these. A recent analysis of the Genie website shows that 20% of the people who visit the site are Hispanic. We are also experiencing an increasing number of customers who are requesting literature, training materials, and other documents in Spanish as well. So out of curiosity, I want to turn the tables on myself, and I showed this slide from one of our Spanish training programs to a Spanish-speaking team member. And I asked him just to read it and explain to me what it meant. He read it, looked at me, and he said, it means that you need to be very careful around power lines because you can be electrocuted. Okay, that's very good information to have. But what it actually says provides critical information that is far more important to the operator and could literally mean the difference between life and death. High voltage overhead power lines are not insulated. The operator or any part of the machine will not have to come in direct contact with a power line to be in extreme danger. High voltage current can jump up to 45 feet. Those facts are much more critical to the operator than be careful around electricity or you'll be electrocuted. So my point is, when it comes to safety, there's absolutely no room for vague interpretation. As we all know, or we should all know, the operator's manual is the most critical component on an aerial work platform. If the manual is missing, the machine should be tagged and removed from service. Fortunately, most major aerial work platform manufacturers in North America provide operators' manuals in multiple languages. English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese at a minimum. Genie provides operators manuals in up to 32 languages, and these can be downloaded free of charge from our website. That's a great start. In addition, Genie and the other major aerial platform manufacturers in North America, as well as IPAP and other entities, do offer high-quality operator programs in Spanish as well as in English. But now we're understanding that that's really part of the solution, and I'll explain what I mean by that. In a recent Spanish Train-the-Trainer course consisting of 18 participants, we surveyed the team and found out that the average age was 27 years old. What surprised us was the average education level was 6th grade. Is this an anomaly, or is this something that we should be concerned about? The University of Utah Health Sciences Center recently published a document summarizing several studies done in the United States and in Canada. These studies estimate that the average reading skill level in our countries is around 8th to 9th grade level. However, that same study found that 1 in 5 adults had a reading skill level at the 5th grade level or below. Think about that. Are we taking that into consideration when we develop training materials, when we develop standards, when we develop documentation? There's a reason why USA Today is written at the 6th grade level. Their goal is to reach the broadest range of readers possible, and they understand the vocabulary range to target. We need to take this into consideration when we're developing documents and training materials. So we know there are language barriers, and we know how to address them using multiple language training programs. We also know that we need to create documents at the appropriate vocabulary level. In addition to all of these challenges, we all learn differently. Some of us are kinesthetic learners, and we learn by doing. Some of us are visual learners, and others are auditory learners. Most of us are a combination of all three. It's absolutely critical to a good training program to incorporate adult learning theory by repeating and reinforcing key concepts in a variety of unique and interesting ways. This helps a broader range of individuals to receive a more meaningful and a high-quality learning experience. In addition, everyone learns at his or her own pace. For some individuals, keeping up with the rest of the participants in a classroom environment is very difficult and can negatively interfere with their ability to grasp and retain the concepts being presented. Receiving one-on-one instruction can be very difficult when an instructor has a room full of people to teach. So to meet the challenge of training operators in a manner they can understand, the training program must incorporate the following. It must be taught in a language they can understand. It must be written at the appropriate vocabulary level. It must incorporate adult learning theory, and it must be paced at a speed that is appropriate for all. Fortunately, there's some very exciting new trends that are emerging, like the Genie LitPro Online Operator Training Program. This program is designed to provide operators with high-quality training that is presented in a manner they can understand. By offering these training programs on a web-based platform, we can reach a much higher number of individuals who simply can't access a traditional training course, whether it be due to cost, location, or even availability. The interactive program content, combined with the ability to take the course at the user's pace, creates a high-quality and meaningful learning experience. By offering this training in multiple languages, ensuring that the content is written at the proper grade level, incorporating adult learning theory, and presenting the material in a self-paced format, these programs meet the challenges posed by the incredible diversity of this amazing organization, this aerial work platform industry. It's really all about elevating safety. It's about all of us doing everything we can to ensure that the men and women who operate aerial work platforms in their work are well-trained, are well-qualified, and kept safe, so that every single one of them can return home to their families at the end of the day. I appreciate you taking the time to join this webinar and any questions you may have. Thank you very much. Katie?
All right, thanks, Scott. Appreciate that. We did have a couple questions about the presentation, if it will be available post conference, and I'll just email it to you. If you want to add your email address to the question box with your questions or in the chat box, I'm happy to comply and send those at the end of the webinar and get you any other information that you need. Let's see. Has there been any discussion about any upcoming changes to the ANSI standards? Or, I know that there's been some talk about adding things to familiarization or adding things to training. Is there anything that you can talk about with regard to upcoming changes?
Well, there's some things that they're discussing, and some of the changes that they're discussing I think are very good. One is they're considering putting in an expiration period for operator training. Currently on AirWork platform training, there's no expiration period. So once you're trained, you are trained unless your manager observes you doing something unsafe or you've been involved in an accident, and then you need to be retrained. But like a telehandler operator training program in North America, in the United States, you have to be reevaluated every 3 years and then issued a new card. In Canada, you actually have to be retrained every 3 years and issued a new card. So they're considering putting an expiration period on operator training. And as a training manager, I think that's a really good idea, because it will keep this information in the forefront of operators' minds. When you go through a training course, a lot of operators will go out there and are very safe when they first get out there in the field, because they remember everything we talk about, the hazards and all the issues that we talk about in a good training program. But after a while, you kind of get complacent. So having to go through the training, every 3 years or 4 years or whatever that period will be, I think is a good thing.
Okay. And I think IPAF does that. If you use IPAF's training program, their PAL card expires after 5 years or something like that, but this would be something that would be across all types of training, right?
Yeah, a lot of companies offer operator training, and there's a lot of really good operator training programs out there. So IPAF is one of them, but there's a multitude of good training programs that are high-quality training programs. And a lot of those companies will put an expiration on their card just as an internal process. Some companies obviously are doing it just to generate future business for themselves. Other companies do that because they are trying to encourage people to be retrained on a regular basis. It's not an ANSI or CSA requirement, but it is something that each company kind of chooses whether they want to do that or not. At Genie, we don't put an expiration period on our card, but we do really focus on the familiarization after the general training and making sure that people are familiarized on the specific model of machines that they're operating. There are some companies that will issue you an operator card. They'll train you on a Z3020, for example, and issue you a card that states that you're qualified to operate all articulating booms, which means everything from a Z30 all the way up to a 135, and we don't support that. So that each entity handles that a little bit differently.
Okay. Someone did ask, does ANSI require it every 4 years, or is that
No, they do not.
Every 4 years? Okay, they don't. Have there been any changes to the ANSI A92 standards since 2006?
They are working on some changes to the standards right now. They have not been finalized. I've been able to take a look at some of the standards for training, but they're still being discussed right now. So there are some things that could definitely change the industry, like the potential of requiring load sense on aerial platforms in North America, which we obviously have never had before now. So they're looking at some pretty substantial possible changes on the horizon.
Okay, great. Does OSHA or ANSI recognize online training for aerial lifts?
As long as the training meets all of the requirements as outlined in their standards, and I will be honest with you, there are some great online operator training programs. Obviously, I'm here to talk about the LiftPro online operator training program, but IPAF has an e-learning module that is a high-quality online operator training program. That being said, there are other programs out there. You can Google them and pay $75 and read a bunch of material in 20 minutes and actually print an operator's card at the end of that program. And I would like to see us as an industry do away with those types of programs, because they do the operator a serious disservice by giving them the false sense that they've been trained. And so that's that's just an example right there. You just have to really be careful. They support it as long as it meets all the requirements, but there are a lot of programs out there that don't.
Okay. Sorry, a lot of questions about PowerPoint, getting the PowerPoint. So I'll get those to you guys afterward. Where do you get the most current information on the stats for accidents? Can you just find that on ipap.org?
Yes. As a matter of fact, IPAP has done a great job putting their accident database together. It's been, up to this point, it's been very difficult to get that information. And even the IPAP accident database, they're just getting started. But they did a great job presenting the information at the conference last week. Not only do they understand the accidents, but they're looking into the causes of those accidents. And that's going to be great information to help people understand what's really going on out there and put some steps in place to try to eliminate. We all have the same goal, and that's to eliminate accidents and fatalities 100%. And everybody in the industry feels the same way, and we're all willing to work together to get there. So IPAP has done a great job with that accident database. And just from what we saw, the statistics I showed on this PowerPoint were from 2012. So far in 2013, from January just through June, there are already 26 fatalities logged into that accident database. And they don't believe it's because there have been more fatalities. They believe it's because more people are reporting the fatalities that are actually occurring. So it's a little disheartening that there are that many people out there being injured and killed on machines. But the more we can understand what's going on, the better we can put some steps into place to eliminate that type of unsafe behavior.
Okay. I believe this was asked in the last webinar, but are you aware of a cheat sheet out there for pre-lift inspections?
I'm aware of a few different cheat sheets out there. We do not support cheat sheets. You know, everything that our whole goal is always to get the operator to read and understand the entire operator's manual before operating the machine. And my personal belief is that if there's a check sheet out there, a cheat sheet out there, then you're saying this is really what's important. You don't have to read the manual. So I don't support the cheat sheets. We do offer in our operator training programs, we have check sheets for for training, for hands-on familiarization and for the hands-on training component. But our stance is always read and understand the entire operator's manual before you operate that machine.
Okay, great. Does Genie have any training materials like IBES produces? Or I think there's other safety companies that produce training materials, but are there any for Genie-specific materials?
We have an operator training program. It's a good, high-quality training kit on aerial platforms, and we also offer one on telehandlers. And I'll say it's a Genie program, but it's general in nature, so it is not Genie-specific. You can use this material to train a group of operators, and if they have to go out and operate a Skyjack or a JLG or any other type of machine, as long as they're familiarized on that machine by somebody who is qualified to operate that specific piece of equipment, then the training is 100% valid. And those training kits can be ordered through any one of our Genie dealers.
Great. Okay. A couple questions on technology. New technology, is there a new technology for like simulators or something like that to help train operators that don't read well?
Well, there are some simulators out there. There's some very good 3D software out there that simulates the actual operation of the machine. But I think your question really needs to be broken into two parts. If an operator must be able to read the operator's manual and must be able to read the decals on the machine, or else they simply cannot be qualified to operate that piece of equipment. And the question was posed to me at the IPAP conference last week. Does that mean that an illiterate person is not able to operate an aerial work platform? And my response was that would indicate that somebody would have to sit down with them and actually read the entire operator training program to them, have them respond back to the questions, read the entire operator's manual to them, and make sure that they understand, read the decals. And basically what my point is, that's not going to happen. It's so critical for the operator to be able to read and understand the operator's manual, to read and understand all the details on the machine, and also understand what the warning lights are, what the safety systems on that machine are. So I think nothing will ever replace, I don't believe, reading the documentation and then the hands-on training and familiarization with a qualified person. I think the 3D software is neat. I think it's I don't want to use the term gimmicky, but I think that it's a good way to get people to kind of understand what the controls do and how the machine will respond, but I don't think it will ever replace real operator training.
Okay. Are you aware of a system that Genie might add, that like a telematics system that would confirm who is operating the equipment, if they've been trained or have not?
Well, I know that they're looking at different systems right now. Our SmartLink system is moving us towards the telematics, and that's kind of a new discussion that has just recently come about as far as having a reader that determines whether someone is qualified. And really, all it's doing is verifying that someone's card was installed in the machine. It doesn't necessarily indicate that that is actually the person who owns that card. So I think that there's some other ways to go about that to not tie up the whole industry with one specific solution, but there are some conversations out there, and Guy and I actually had a conversation last week about some ideas that he's got that will give us that same level of control and understanding that qualified people are operating the machines, but not locking anybody into one specific type of a program.
Not a retina scanner or thumbprint reader or anything like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. We have a question about tying off while using the lift. Do you want to run through that real quick? Because I know that's always a question that pops up, fall protection on aerial work platforms.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we actually had a panel discussion at the IPAF conference last week on exiting elevated platforms, and obviously most people are aware that in vertical lifts, scissor lifts, push-arounds, there's not a need for fall protection equipment unless it's required by that job site or local regulations. But on telescopic booms, articulating booms, you must wear a full body harness and a lanyard. And of course, OSHA's come out with some other requirements as far as fall restraint versus fall arrest. But the issue of exiting an elevated platform, the bottom line is people do it, and all of the manufacturers understand that. So we are all providing guidance to the people to be able to exit an elevated platform safely. So Skyjack, JLG, and Genie all have approval letters if somebody needs to exit an aerial platform at the elevated position, and those letters tell them exactly what they must do to be able to do that safely. And some of the issues are 100% tie-off. So dual lanyard system, you remain tied off in the platform until you tie off at the external point and you disconnect from the platform. We give them guidance on where the platform needs to be located, how close to the surface. You must have a ground person down at the ground controls of the machine. The machine must be blocked off so that nobody can move the machine. So we do provide that guidance for individuals that are exiting the platform. And I know that they're talking about writing into the ANSI standards some guidance for exiting elevated platforms as well. So when we know that someone is doing something in the industry that's unsafe, if we can provide a safer means for them to do that, we definitely try to move in that direction.
Okay. IPAF and other organizations give stats for fatalities, but are there any stats for lost time injuries?
No, that's another area where, I mean, you can get some of that information from the OSHA website and some, the local organizations, but we just really haven't began gathering that type of information in a area that everybody can actually access it. And that's the nice thing about the IPAF accident database is they're going to start looking at not just the fatalities, but injuries, near misses, accidents, and things like that to help us better understand what's going on out there.
Right. I think I've heard an insurance person speak on that before, and that's the best type of data I've seen is through the insurance companies, the claims that they receive.
Right. But gathering all that information, in one place is difficult.
Right. Okay, I think we've gone through all of the questions here. If there are no further questions, thank you, Scott, for your time today and your expertise.
Thank you very much.
If anyone has any follow-up questions, you can just email me. My email address is right here on the screen. Anyone who sent me their email address, I'm happy to send you the presentation in just a few minutes. The recording should be live by the end of the day on our YouTube channel, and we'll try to get it posted on Listen Access and the Safety Conference websites this week. Again, thank you all for attending. Look for our next presentation on November 26th on risk management for the crane industry. If you have questions about that, please let me know. Otherwise, everyone have a great afternoon. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you very much.